When the cross-country season ends, many athletes feel excitement or pride or satisfaction, confidence, or a sense of accomplishment. For many others, though, the reality is not so positive. They might feel disappointed, inadequate, or relieved that they're done racing, or sadly, they might even feel a sense of failure. Perhaps their season didn't live up to their expectations for any number of reasons. Perhaps they were injured or ill, they didn't get faster, they didn't run what they previously had in their career, they didn't get a PR, they didn't get all league, all region, all state, whatever they were chasing, it just didn't happen. I can speak from personal experience that the end of the season is not always a celebration for many athletes. In fact, many leave with unmet expectations, unrealized goals and dreams, and might even feel full of regret. It seems to be an unspoken rule that you should get faster and always see continual linear progression in your running. Yet, that is not always realistic. Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Blue Water Running Podcast. I'm your host, Maren, and I started Blue Water Running to focus on the incredible athletes we have in our area. Fast times, improvements, and accomplishments make great stories, articles, and podcasts, and those elements are exciting and noteworthy. It's admirable and understandable to strive toward goals. So let's take a moment here to recognize that all of these achievements I mentioned aren't necessarily requirements to have a successful and fulfilling running career. And you don't have to have your life and identity defined and dictated by your success and failure, especially when it comes to your running. Believe me, I have lived that frustration, hopelessness, and discouragement. The Blue Water Running Podcast has allowed me to feature many different versions of athlete success stories, but on this episode, I'm sharing my story in the hope that if there's somebody out there stuck in a rut, an injury cycle, a performance plateau, a season of discouragement, whatever it is, it will help them hold on for a breakthrough. This episode is all about encouraging you to keep going, keep working, keep dreaming, keep hoping, and most of all, believe that you aren't done yet. There's a whole new beginning just waiting. So let's take it way back to the beginning. It's 1979. Jimmy Carter is president, the McDonald's Happy Meal, the Sony Walkman, and ESPN are all introduced for the first time. My parents said the day I learned to walk, I was off trying to run. Anyone who knows me knows I love to run. It's been my passion. Being a runner was my identity, and it defined me. It's kind of like running is in my DNA. I've loved it since as early as I can remember. I have no idea why, since no one in my family was ever a runner, and I had no experience or exposure to it in my household as a child. Some might say I was even destined for it. My name was perfect, spelled M-E-R-A-N, me, ran, and my last name, Miles. One of my teammates in middle school called me Ran Miles, and it stuck for the rest of my life. I was outside playing all the time and would race kids around the block, and I loved the time mile and gym, which, as you probably realize, isn't normal for most kids. Most kids dread the timed mile. I loved it. I had a burning desire to run and win very early in my life. Now, I shared a room with my sister, and the night before the timed mile, I'd be doing sit-ups, and my sister would ask, "What are you doing?" And I would answer, "Oh, I gotta win tomorrow," as if doing sit-ups the night before will help. In 5th grade, I won my class timed mile because the boy in front of me had an asthma attack on the second lap. Did I stop and help? No, I just sprinted past him and won. I'm not proud of that moment. I probably could have handled that a little differently, but that gives you a little taste of just how I felt inside. Now, my family didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't own my first pair of real running shoes until I was in about 6th grade. When my dad saw the price tag, he made my mom take them back to the store for cheaper ones. I sat on the porch for about an hour just holding them and looking at them, never trying them on or even running in them. It was really close to high school before I'd ever own and train in a real pair. Now, there weren't really 5Ks like you see today or any kind of opportunity for kids to run outside of school sports. I joined organized track starting in 6th grade and ran through middle school. I had no idea how to train, pace, anything. I just ran as fast as I could, and that's all I really remember. My middle and high school tracks were gravel, and the lanes were lined by the coach the day before the meet with the same little wheeled contraption filled with chalk that they used for the baseball fields. You better hope it didn't rain. Nobody wore spikes, and there weren't really even running specific clothes that I knew of or had access to. My middle school record in the 880-yard run, yes, we measured track meets in yards, not meters, was 2 minutes and 40 seconds. I started high school in the fall of 1993 at Plymouth-Salem, which was a really big suburban high school with about 1,000 kids per grade. My mom went to the cross-country parent meeting before my freshman year and came home saying, "They run 6 miles a day. I don't think you're ready for that." And that sounded actually pretty horrible. So I didn't even run cross-country for the first time until I was a sophomore. So I started my season in 10th grade, and my PR that year was maybe a 22:30. There was no athletic.net for that, so I really have no idea. I think in 1830 or so won our Class A regional, which now we'd call D1, and that was probably a minute or two faster than anyone else in the race. Apparently, I did race the Holly Invitational, which I have no memory of, but I found a picture of me with that horse corral fence that you run around at the start and you finish by, so apparently it's true. Now, my dad had a job transfer in the summer of 1995, so I moved to the much smaller rural district, which would be a D3 school, of Blissfield, the summer between my sophomore and junior year. I turned 16, and my graduating class was about 120, so moving there was obviously going to be a very different culture, and that hometown feel and smaller, close-knit team really helped me blossom. When I came on my spring break to register for classes and tour the school, another student saw my family walking through with my Salem cross-country sweatshirt on, and he ran up and said, "Hey, are you moving here? Do you run cross-country? I can introduce you to the coach." The week after we moved, I was walking down the street from my new house, and this big red van drove past, squealed to a halt, and backed up. A guy stuck his head out the window and yelled, "Hey, are you that new runner that moved to town? I'm the coach. I'll have some girls come over and introduce themselves." And they did. They even helped my mom plan a surprise party for my 16th birthday so I would have someone to celebrate with. Moving to a new place is always a bit scary, and this was the 4th time my family had moved and my 6th new school. But I already had friends when school began, and running helped me find my place there, which, as you know, usually happens in a running community, right? Runners stick together. One of the best things about that is even kids who aren't the fastest or maybe don't even race varsity in the top 7 are drawn in by that camaraderie and that family atmosphere. So during cross country, I became the 5th runner that the Royals needed to have a strong pack. So that's what my teammates did for me. They gave me courage and strength to begin a new stage of my life and feel accepted and included. And my coach, whose name was Mr. Navarro, he pushed and inspired me to be a better runner. He taught me a lot about the sport that I didn't yet know, helped me develop a stronger mental attitude and a competitive spirit. He was a true student of the sport. He was always reading Runner's World articles and researching and striving to improve. And I didn't really recognize his sacrifices when I was a teenager at the time. But looking back on it, he worked the night shift as a Michigan State trooper, and then he would coach all day at a meet with not sleeping because he slept during the day. And then he would go right back to work again after we got back on the bus. So he would go like 24, 36, 48 hours without sleeping just so he could coach. And then he was always very encouraging. He followed my collegiate career, kept in touch, and is still actually a successful competitive age group runner himself. And he is retired now, so he gets to focus more on his running. But weirdly enough, his daughters and I look very similar, so they used to call me the 4th Navarro sister. So actually, his daughter is one of my best friends, so we're still good friends to this day. So our team was very successful. We won our league, county meet regionals, and there was a lot of press about the team's success. And we went into the state meet ranked 2nd in the state. So the pressure was really mounting, but we were also excited. Like, what could we do? What could happen? So our coach really thought that we had a shot at winning because we finally had that top 5. And back then, we ran the state meet in different locations. So if you were Class A, you would run a different place than Class C and so on. So we were running on a golf course outside of Grand Rapids, and it was a freezing cold day. It was sleeting, raining. There were really gusty winds. I think it was like 30 degrees. And the gun went off, and this is my first state meet experience. I have no idea what it's going to be like, and it was just a blur. And all of a sudden, After about the mile mark, I got this stabbing pain in my left side that I've never had before. It was a terrible side cramp. And I'm sure if you have had one before, you know how bad it hurts. It comes out of nowhere. Every breath I took, it was harder to breathe. And I passed my coach a little bit later and he was yelling, "Come on, Miles, come on." And I just kind of pointed at my side because I couldn't really say anything. And he realized what was happening and tried to tell me to relax, but it just hurt so bad that all I could think about was this pain. And I got slower and slower. And I ended up dropping from like 20th place at the mile to like almost 100th place by the end of the race. And that race ended up being my slowest time of my entire high school career. And I was completely devastated. I felt like an absolute failure. I felt like I let my team down. This had never happened to me before, so I didn't really know what to do with any of those feelings. And just devastating, right? So maybe you've had a moment like that. Maybe you have felt great and everything is going your way. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, things start falling apart and you have no idea how to handle that and no idea what to do with that. People will try to give you advice. You try to keep going, but you feel pain, you feel confusion, you feel lost, you feel behind. I'm going to be honest, there are going to be moments like that. If you haven't had one already, you're going to experience times like that when we're doing something that we love or we feel called to do. It's not always going to be easy. A lot of runners quit and walk away when they go through a struggle season. And I'm here to encourage you to stick through the tough stuff because the miles that you're running, they're still in there. The work that you've done, it's still there. It still matters. And you are still learning and you are still growing, right? I was so young. It was only my second year of cross country. And I just didn't have any perspective on that. So I wanted to share that so that maybe if you're feeling that way, you can realize like there's more to come, right? Now, I wish I could tell you that was the only time I struggled in my running, but no. So I bounced back from my first really bad state meet race to have an awesome track season. My team finished second at the state meet in the 4x800 relay, and we set a school record that still stands today at 9:47. My next season of cross country was my senior year, and it went okay. I never really ran a fast or great race. I stayed basically stuck at the same time all season in the mid-21s, never ran my PR. And then when track season rolled around in the spring, things got really bad, really bad. Every time we would do anything in practice, especially a speed workout or a tempo run or anything with a higher intensity, and then also racing, I just could not get in a groove. I felt sluggish and tired. Just my body felt off, like it wasn't doing what I had asked it to do, or it didn't feel the same. And then the times that I had run easily the year before seemed really, really difficult. I wasn't even able to get close. Now, I didn't have the internet or training websites or really much information other than books you could check out from the library or what our coach told us. So we didn't know all the different aspects of training that athletes have full access to now, like the rest and recovery and fueling knowledge. And even if I could have had access to all those advances in technology, I don't know if that knowledge would have made a difference. I would go home and I would try to do more workouts. I would do a workout video or I'd try to run extra miles, which in hindsight was not the best for what I was trying to accomplish. But no matter what I did, it just felt like I was running through sand. And my coach finally had to pull me off the relay that I had been all-state in the year before and replace me with another teammate who was just more consistent and reliable. And it was devastating, but I couldn't blame him. I mean, I just couldn't run fast enough. So my high school career kind of fizzled out and ended, and that was it. And I look back at that and think I probably was growing, maybe was anemic, who knows. My body obviously was changing and adapting, but I wasn't aware that that could happen. No one told me that that was normal. And the amount of information now makes the sport better, not just for your physical development, but also your mental health. There's much more awareness around mental health and puberty and all the things that teenage athletes are dealing with. And you should take advantage of the resources that you have to stay healthy and in the right mindset. Because I placed my whole identity on my running performance, it was even more frustrating and devastating when I didn't race well, and I didn't have a good perspective on that. It is so much healthier to have a balanced approach where you look at your life and yourself as a person with running as a part of your life, and you don't let it overtake everything else. And if you want to hear some really great perspectives on healthy, balanced running while you're taking care of your body, there's two great Instagram accounts. One is Abby Vanderkoy. I've interviewed her on the podcast. Her handle is Running on Ice Cream. And then another athlete, her handle is Taste by Grace. I highly recommend you check both of their stories out. They're very realistic and honest and inspiring. During my senior year of cross country, the Spring Arbor coach had been talking to my teammates and myself about attending, and I had already applied and been accepted and had a small scholarship. I knew I wanted to keep running competitively, but my confidence was really lacking, and I wasn't sure if I was good enough to compete on a college team. When I went to cross-country camp in August before my freshman year of college, I was a solid mile behind everyone else on every single run. And the assistant coach had to keep waiting for me in the back. Sometimes I walked, and they were probably thinking, oh my gosh, what kind of dead weight did we recruit, right? Like, what are we getting here? So I moved to campus to start school in the fall of 1997. And when I started practicing with the team, it wasn't any better than it was at camp. I was really struggling. I could barely keep up with the slowest runners. I was walking, just could not perform. Now, I loved school. I was happy there. I had great friends. I had adjusted really well to everything else as far as a collegiate athlete, but it just felt absolutely exhausting, and I felt incapable of completing any of the workouts, and I really don't know why. Now, I want to take a moment and have a side note here. This is a great time in life to give yourself tons of grace and patience. You are adapting to a major life change, and it can be very overwhelming physically and mentally. Also, seek out mental health support at your school or in your community. Athletes have some of the highest rate of mental health crises because of the immense pressure and expectation that they put on themselves. So it is okay to ask for help and say, I am not okay. A great resource on Instagram is Hope for Athletes. That is a wonderful account that posts a ton of great content, including the firsthand stories of athletes who felt that their identity was completely based on sports, and they had to separate themselves from their performance and find that healthy balance in their lives. So I really encourage you to check that out. The first collegiate race of my freshman year was at Kenosha, Wisconsin, where they actually hold the Foot Locker Cross Country Midwest Regional. So there's this giant hill at the beginning. It's literally a half mile long. You should look up this course. It's crazy. I made it about 200 meters before I stopped at the bottom of this hill, looked straight up at it, and just quit. I just quit. I could not run. I wasn't sick. I wasn't injured. I just could not run any farther. I felt completely humiliated, worthless, hopeless. I just turned around, I walked back down the hill, and I bawled my eyes out. My coach was still at the start line, and he had saw me do that, and he came over and he put his arm around me, and we walked down the hill. And then the next race, the same thing happened. I stopped and I quit. And then I did it again 3 times in a row, and I just couldn't run. I don't know why. I can't explain it. I've never felt this way in any race in any other time in my life. Now, for those of you who are runners, you understand this is the lowest you can get in a race. If you stop running and you quit, you feel like it is the ultimate failure. I can honestly say, in my entire life, never felt more discouraged. I loved running. It was everything to me. It was my passion. It was my dream. It was my identity. I had never not wanted to run. But now I found myself thinking, maybe I should quit. I'd never had that thought enter my mind before. But I was thinking, maybe I should quit. I'm no good anymore. I can't hack it as a collegiate runner. Now, side note, to their credit, my teammates nor my coach never made me feel any less a part of the team. They never made me feel that way. That was just my perception, and what I took on myself as my failure got to my mental state. But then I kept hearing this small voice, but it was whispering to me, don't quit. Don't quit. You'll never know what could happen. You'll always wonder. You'll always regret it. I really feel like that was God whispering to me in those moments of doubt in his small voice, because that changed my life. If you had told me then what would happen in my future, I would not have believed you. I would have laughed in your face and said, ha, that's impossible. But sometimes small miracles and people who step in at just the right time change the trajectory of our story. The next meet that I ran on was on our home course. My team captain, a senior named Liz Stewart, came up next to me at the start line and said, Marin, today I'm running with you the whole race. You're not going to quit this time. I tried to argue with her because she was obviously much faster than me, and she would be forced to run slower and miss her last home race, doing her best. But she was adamant. I didn't know it at the time, but years later, my coach told me that he and Liz had come up with this plan together. Liz had approached him and said, I want to do something to help Marin overcome this mental block and this discouragement. Can I run with her? And Coach Bippis agreed to do that. And I'm obviously super grateful for that because Liz stuck by my side that entire time. She yelled at me. She encouraged me. She bossed me around and said, don't you dare quit. And she was really the only reason that I made it to the finish line that time for the first time all season. She also sacrificed her own race, and that was really meaningful to me just to make sure that I finished mine. Another really strange coincidence about Liz and I, her dad had the same job my dad did, and my dad took over her dad's job when they moved, and we actually lived in the same house as teenagers. So they moved out and we moved in, and we had the same bedroom. We just never knew that one day we would grow up and meet and become teammates, which is really crazy. So I finished my first collegiate race. It was a bit of a mental breakthrough for me. I had, got one done. I was feeling a little more confident that I had. And I thought, okay, I can do this slow but steady, just keep improving, little by little. I knew I could finish a race and it wasn't the end of the world anymore. And thank God my coach, Bill Bippis, saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. He could have wrote me off. I mean, running a 23-minute 5K as a collegiate athlete is not exactly setting the course on fire, but he still challenged me. He expected me to do my best, and he pushed me past my own perceptions of what I thought my limits were. And without his guidance, my career would have been a completely different story. In fact, I may not have had a story. He saw my potential. He believed I had more in store than what I would have settled for. What happened after that is literally a miracle. I cannot find the words to describe it any other way. Anyone I've ever told this story to has heard me use that word, miracle. One day, on a long, hilly dirt run on a road called Grover Road out in the country, I was running along with my teammates at practice, and I could literally feel a definitive change come over my body. All of a sudden, my legs felt light. My heart felt filled with joy, like the misery and drudgery of running so depressingly all the time was just gone. To this day, I can remember this moment in every detail. The road, the sky, the trees, the birds, what shoes I was wearing, everything. It is a moment that is etched in my mind forever. I don't know how it happened, it just did. So I'm running along and I'm feeling this new crazy feeling, and I'm going faster and faster. And before I know it, I'm running past the girls on our team. And then I'm up close to Coach in our team van up ahead. And he leans out the window and he's like, "What's going on?" And I say, "I don't know." This continued every day for the next week, and then 2 weeks. And then out of nowhere, I was just running incredibly fast and feeling incredibly good. I can't explain it. It was like someone had flipped a switch on me from slow to go. I called my mom and I said, "Mom, you better come to the meet this weekend because I think something is going to happen." So that weekend was the conference meet. I had pretty much dreaded every race in my career. Maybe you feel the same way before you have to race. You're filled with anxiety and nervousness. Even though I loved running, I couldn't eat. I'd have trouble sleeping. I'd have to go to the bathroom 598 times. But this time, I felt different. I felt excited. I felt confident. I felt hyped. I couldn't wait to get on the starting line. I just had this feeling that something amazing was going to happen. So the gun went off, and I just felt so good. I was running and passing people, and I had this song in my head. Ain't nothing gonna break my stride. Nobody gonna slow me down. Whoa, I got to keep on moving. Have you heard that one? Well, it was in my head the whole time. And we go through the mile mark, and the guys' team is already done racing. So they're on the side cheering for the runners coming through. And they're yelling, "Go Kelly, go Liz, go Marin?" You could hear the shock in their voice. I was shocked. I ran the race of my life, and I finished in the fastest time I had ever run in my entire career by almost an entire minute. It was incredible. It lifted my spirits. It filled me with this joy I had never had before. And it was truly just the beginning of something amazing. The mindset of positivity was a huge change for me, and it began a new mentality of approaching my races. The fitness was there. I'd done all the workouts, I'd run all the miles, but now I believed in myself. Clearly, I'd had some kind of physical transformation, but the mental transformation was just as significant and powerful. I'd performed well, so I gained confidence, which in turn encouraged me to believe I could run even better. This positive cycle fed itself just like the previously negative cycle had fed itself. Find a mantra to repeat to yourself. Find a song that gets you hyped. Find something that makes you feel excited to race and helps you focus on your positives. It's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be a level of pain, but we already know that. So embrace it and move forward. I used to blast Bittersweet Symphony on my Walkman as I warmed up. Yes, that's right, a cassette tape player with a pair of headphones with a cord. But whenever I hear that song to this day, I still get that pre-race feeling. Here's a tip. Try smiling while you're running. It'll change your life. I often reflect on how differently things would have been if I hadn't kept the faith. I never would have enjoyed the career that I did. I don't like to talk about or focus on myself, but please hear what I'm trying to say in the context of understanding the amazing potential and possibility that is inside each of us. How could a quitter become all-conference, all-American, a national champion, win titles with her team in cross country, or set multiple school records? I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that when I was standing at the bottom of that hill quitting a race, I'd one day graduate 4 years later as the most decorated Spring Arbor cross country and track athlete at that time in school history, and 20 years later, be inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame. If someone would have told me all those things, I would have laughed. But a lot of times we sell ourselves short. We say, I could never do that. I'm not capable of that. But maybe you could. Maybe you are. I never would have known what lay ahead for me, but God could see the whole picture. I look back at my career with extreme gratitude and thankfulness for all of the amazing adventures and experiences I've had as a runner. These moments in my life shaped me into who I've become and taught me to be determined, grateful, confident, and resilient. I never would have appreciated the successes I enjoyed later in my career the way I did because I had struggled for so long before that. Honestly, I might have taken it for granted. Of course, I had to back up the belief I was capable of winning with years of hard work, and progress didn't always come in picture-perfect results. For every victory, I experienced an equal and opposite failure, or 2, or 3. Did I still have off days and bad races? Of course. There were several big goals I'd set for myself that I never achieved in my career. But because I had seen the bottom of that valley, the mountaintop seemed that much better, and I had a totally different perspective from which to handle my disappointment. I knew where I had started, and it made me so thankful and appreciative of where I finished. I've tried to take my experience full circle in the hopes that maybe it's the boost somebody needs, just like Liz did for me. She now lives in California, and I haven't seen her in about 20 years, but I did reach out when I was inducted into the Spring Arbor Hall of Fame to tell her about my speech and how her sacrifice changed the trajectory of my career and inspired countless others after. For years after I was graduated from Spring Arbor, my coach told the Marin Miles story to girls who were discouraged or struggling in their careers, reminding them to hold on and persevere, stay the course. I've told my story to my daughter as she struggled through some really tough seasons too. You're not done yet. When you see success, be kind and gracious and remember to encourage and inspire others. If you feel satisfied with what you've done and where you are, that's great. Whether I'd had success or not, I would still have been a better person for the lessons I learned, the character traits I developed, and the opportunities I had through my years of running. Anyone can experience that, no matter if they're winning or not. You don't have to have a record board filled with your name to be successful and fulfilled. You matter, you're important, and that's aside from anything you will ever do in running. I've had so many great memories and experiences in my lifetime. Some of my former teammates remain my greatest friends to this day. I met my husband running, and we've watched our kids grow up and have some of these amazing experiences too. I've traveled all over to run in races like the Detroit, Chicago, and Boston marathons, trail marathons, Ragnar relays. So many adventures are out there, and you don't want to miss them. Even though for me, my fastest years are definitely behind me, there are still goals I set and train to achieve. I run because I love to, and I want to. I still can, and I never take it for granted. You know, sometimes we just never get answers. Sometimes we never know why. Sometimes we just have to trust things are working for our good. Do everything to the best of your ability, and even when it feels like you're not making a difference, trust that the work eventually comes together. I mean, think how long it takes a professional runner to see results, right? Hang on to the love that first brought you to this sport. Your why. Why do you train? Why do you race? Why do you spend your time running? Are you satisfied? Or do you know there is more potential inside that you have yet to discover? There will always be someone faster, but there is also always room for you to learn, grow, and change. There will be seasons of great gains and some of regression or recovery. You don't have to dismiss or suppress disappointment, but you definitely don't have to live there all the time. Acknowledge it and let it drive you to the next thing. Put your fear and discouragement away and trade them for hope. I didn't believe what happened to me was possible, but the potential was inside of me, and it lies inside of you too. Give your best in everything in this life because you only get one, and you have a purpose. You never know what you could become. So get out there and chase your dreams. Ecclesiastes 9:11 says, I have observed something else under the sun. The fastest runner doesn't always win the race, and the strongest warrior doesn't always win the battle. The wise sometimes go hungry, and the skillful are not necessarily wealthy. And those who are educated don't always lead successful lives. It is all decided by chance, by being in the right place at the right time. Time and chance happen to them all. So, give yourself time and give yourself a chance. I'm always rooting for you. Once again, thank you so much for tuning into today's Blue Water Running podcast. I can't wait to feature more cross-country and track and field athletes from the Blue Water area, so stay tuned because it just might be you. Coverage on Blue Water Running is sponsored in part by Elite Feet of Port Huron. If you need running shoes, spikes, or apparel, they have a friendly and knowledgeable staff to help you find just the right fit, and they're big fans of running too. They are located at 327 Huron Ave in downtown Port Huron. If you are interested in sponsoring coverage or partnering with Blue Water Running as an advertiser to reach and support local runners, please reach out via the website, show notes, or social media channels. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. You can find the Blue Water Running podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and any other major media player. You can also ask your smart speaker to play the Blue Water Running podcast. If you have an idea for a great topic or guest that you would like to hear about, feel free to contact me through the website links or show notes. You can follow Blue Water Running on Instagram, X, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also find meet and athlete reports and articles at www.bluewaterrunning.org.